I'm Marilyn Weston, and you're definitely getting it straight from a woman's perspective here on Zoomer Radio. In the last few weeks, we've been talking about women and money and finance, and Darren Farwell of the Farwell Group usually talks about investing tax efficiently, but our focus has been towards women, and I'm finding it very interesting. And I've had calls from a number of our listeners who say, thank you, Darren, for talking about women and the responsibility we can take to empower ourselves with our finances. So what do you have for us today?
Well, Marilyn, the other day I was reading a research report, a very recent one, entitled Women in Wealth, published by IPC Private Wealth, a private company. And in the report, it states that 43% of Canadians over the age of 65 are single. That in itself surprised me. But that the majority of those, 4 of 5 of every one of these single Canadians, are actually women. So that's an awful lot of the Canadian population that are women, single women, who, of course, being single women, are facing many challenges that come with being a widow. Now, not to suggest that all of the single women are widows, but many of them, of course, are. And the research indicates that only 31% of women consider themselves financially knowledgeable. So the fact is, for many women who are widowed, there are some important and sophisticated financial, investment, and these days, quite importantly, estate planning issues to consider for you and your family, and these potentially are having to be done by yourself. The thing is, being widowed shouldn't mean paying more tax than you need to. But if you aren't careful, it will. Today's happy story is about Shelley and how she took action, got professional help, that is, someone to help advise her. As we so often say, Marilyn, getting some professional to help does provide that knowledge that you might not otherwise have. We say, you don't know what you don't know, so it's good to go out and find someone who can perhaps fill in those gaps. And by taking action and getting the advice, it resulted in Shelley having a plan that leaves significantly more money to her beneficiaries rather than going to CRA, Canada Revenue Agency.
I'll applaud that.
There's a lot of people who are much in favor of that. Well, when someone passes on, there's 3 choices. Money can go to your beneficiaries, to charity, or CRA. And most people would prefer go to the first 2. So we have lots of strategies to help make that happen.
So what happened with Shelley?
Well, Shelley's 76. She was widowed 8 years ago. By her own admission, her husband, and as she describes it, her husband's advisor, had set things up well enough such that the transfer of wealth and assets on his death was pretty straightforward. So while Shelley didn't have a great relationship with her husband's advisor, as she says, he never seemed to look at her or speak to her directly in meetings. But again, everything seemed to be going okay, so she really didn't change things, and she left it pretty much alone. But as time passed, she became more interested in investing. And most importantly, she started to ask questions about how to pass her wealth to her children and her favorite charity, University of Toronto, when her time came. And when she reached out to her husband's advisor for ideas, nothing came back. So Shelley decided to take action herself and went and met a couple of people, but also came to meet with me. I quarterbacked a meeting with my team of experts, estates and will planning specialist, Nathan. After doing some planning with Nathan and Shelley, it was clear that Shelley was going to have a significant estate, and much of that would be from non-registered assets and investments that would be subject to probate. Now, probate, as most listeners would be familiar with, is a fee charged by the government to manage the process of executing your will and the estate. The cost of probate in Ontario is between 1.5% and 2%. Now, without proper planning, what we discovered was that Shelley's probate fee was going to be about $70,000. that's a lot of money, and that's money that would be going to the government rather than to her beneficiaries. But by creating an alter ego trust for her, we could get that probate cost down to $15,000. So that keeps $55,000 in the hands of her kids in her favorite charity, University of Toronto. And by the way, by setting up her trust, she also reduces the chances of a challenge to her wishes versus a traditional will. And there are some mixed family issues with her family that could be sticky, so reducing the potential for challenge could be something that's important. So Shelley didn't realize how much she was going to have to pay in probate taxes on her death because she paid very little on her husband's death. And Shelley didn't know that by setting up an alter ego trust, she could significantly reduce that tax. So by creating a plan, by seeking trustworthy professional advice, she took the bull by the horns, learned some things, and the bottom line is she found a strategy to reduce taxes and put more money in the hands, tax efficiently, into the hands of her beneficiaries, her children in the University of Toronto on her death. And Shelley's very happy about that. Just before I finish up, though, Mary, I just wanted people to keep in mind, an alter ego trust structure, it's not for everybody. It's certainly geared towards larger estates, over $1 million, and that's simply because there are costs involved. And so to make the costs worthwhile, there's a certain threshold at which it makes sense to set one of these up.
So basically, each time I speak to you, you find a way, regardless of the size of the estate, to save people money from the tax man. So I think it's great. Alter ego trust. I've never heard that before. I guess if someone wanted to learn more about that, they could call you?
Certainly could call. I do have kind of a 1.5 pager on how alter ego trusts work and who they might be well suited for. Be glad to either talk about that in person or send an email or send a hard copy for those who still like snail mail about alter ego trusts and any other issues you potentially have in mind in regards to how to tax effectively transfer wealth from one generation to the next.
So if you're listening and you have questions about exactly that and you want to save tax, probate tax or tax dollars just in your pocket regardless, all you have to do is call Darren Farwell. I have the number. It's 416-863-7501. That's 416-863-7501. You don't know what you don't know, and this document, the Alter Ego Trust, is available to you, so all you have to do is just ask for it, 416-863-7501, or log on to thefarwellgroup.com, and often you can find the same thing on Facebook. Thank you, Darren.
You're welcome, Marilyn.
Have a great week. I look forward to learning more next week.
Bye for now.